Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Have You Ever Played podcast, widely considered to be one of the podcasts of all time. I'm Matt Fondude, the host of this sinking ship, and my co pilot on the Titanic of podcasts is James.
I'm James04E on all social media. And so with the HYAP podcast, what we plan on doing is basically having it be a book club for games. Each week, Matt and I will be playing games and talking about our various experiences with them and our general opinions on them. Some episodes may be topic episodes that we'll be calling side quests, where we'll ramble about various video game related stuff, topics, things, just whatever.
Yeah, and before we jump into the game, I'm very excited about the side quest nomenclature for those topics episodes. I think it's going to be kind of a fun thing to jump into and do more of those. Not these weekly episodes where we're talking about games specifically, but some of those more freeform episodes. But anyway, we're talking about the wonderful Plants vs Zombies today, a game in which I will try my best to give a little bit of a history lesson and backstory on. This is the first time we've done this segment, so please email me all the things I'm wrong about at hyeppodcast at gmail.com. But let's just get right into it. So, Plants vs. Zombies is a video game franchise developed by PopCap Games. Now, PopCap Games was founded by John Vici and Brian Fiete. Um, Google said his name was pronounced Feet, but I'm going with
Yes.
Fiete, almost like the guy from Diners, Drive-Ins, and Dives.
I'm just going to say feet.
Feet? You're just gonna say John
Yeah.
Feet or Brian Feet rather?
Brian Feet, that's my guy.
Okay, Brian Feet and also Jason Kapalka in 2000. They founded PopCap Games. Now, PopCap Games. Now, this was something that tickled me quite greatly, and I'm very excited to see what your reaction to this is, James. They were originally called Sexy Cool Action, which is, I guess, a reference to the film poster of Desperado.
Huh. Yeah, it doesn't sound very very kid friendly considering the fact that they made Plants vs Zombies.
Yeah, no. You know what their first project actually was? Sexy Cool Action.
Hmm. Well, I I'm just not sure what a first project of somebody like that would be. Like they make a sex game, they make
A cool game, an action game,
cool
one of the
game,
other adjectives.
maybe some sort of open world game, like maybe a GTA spin-off where it's just the strip clubs.
So they went from GTA to Plants vs Zombies.
Yes, that seems like a very natural transition.
Well, you were kind of right about the sexiness because their first game was actually a strip poker game called Foxy Poker, which was supposed to serve as a revenue stream for their future titles. Now, you got to respect the hustle of making one of those kind of games
Respect the hustle.
to get money to fuel your Plants vs. Zombie passion
And
projects.
geez, it's a tough world we're living in, especially in America. Money's tight. Got to do what you got to do.
Well, have you seen the hot tubs category on Twitch? I think it makes sense that why they would get some extra funding. But I will say, I guess apparently people didn't necessarily like the game that much because it wasn't really any like actual like titillating action because all of the like illustrations were like comically censored in kind of like an Austin Powers style where I guess there's are almost showing something but they don't really. And turns out people who play strip poker games kind of want to see something.
And you're telling me that they don't want to see hot moms in their area ads? Damn.
in the bar while sitting in the bar playing your sexy cool action game.
Yeah, that's the reward I would play for, honestly.
Well,
Seems
I
very
guess
based.
I guess they got enough money from that project to then come out under the PopCap name we all know with this little minor game. You may have heard of it called Bejeweled, which came out in May 30th of 2001. This tiny little puzzle game that James,
Yeah.
are you familiar with Bejeweled at all?
Nope, never heard of it. Must be an itty bitty game.
Yeah. Um, but no, in all seriousness though, like Bejeweled is like massive, and also
Yeah.
just other PopCap games like Zuma and like Bookworm, which I actually like Bookworm a lot. And
Hmm.
the based game of all time, Peggle, which maybe we could do an episode on because Peggle's great. Um, I
The
don't know.
base game of all time.
Did you grow up playing a lot of these PopCap games?
Um, a few of them actually. I remember I would play them. Sometimes I'd play them in the library in like middle school,
I
and I would
think
I would
that was
always get
their.
caught and get told to get off the computer.
I think that's their target demographic. It was
Yeah, I
like
was.
people who were very casual gamers. They were the king of casual games.
Yeah, instead of messing with the library database, I was gaming.
And you were learning about spelling if you're playing Bookworm, which I think a lot of kids didn't actually
Yeah.
play as much, but more adults. The kind of like pioneers of that whole like casual adult market of just like anyone in your like your grandma sitting playing like, oh, I'll play like some Bejeweled or something like that.
Hmm.
But we're not talking about those games today. We're talking about Plants vs Zombies. And to get into the story of Plants vs Zombies, we got to talk about George Fan, the main designer of that game. And before George Fan joined PopCap, he actually had a prototype Java version of. So he had a prototype Java game about a fish tank where aliens attack the fish tank, which would later turn into another PopCap game, Insane Aquarium, which I know is very popular among some people. I never really played that game.
So instead of Plants versus Zombies, it was Fish versus Aliens.
Yeah, and actually that alien thing was originally going to be the zombies were going to have a little bit more of that alien inspired nature to them, but they were cut to be zombies. But
Alien Zombies.
they might, I don't remember if
I
they were
want
supposed to
it.
be alien zombies or just aliens. But yeah, there was an alien tie over. Now, the next note in our doc of notes mentions the news of uh, George getting a job offer from PopCap and Blizzard Entertainment. Now, back in 2002, that was probably a very tough choice, and in current day, that's kind of a interesting like who people
Uh,
might not want to work for Blizzard nowadays, but that might be a whole topics episode.
yeah, that's a might be a side quest.
Yeah, that might be a very long side quest, a multi-part side quest. But yeah, but he ultimately actually did choose to work for Blizzard, and he
Hmm.
worked there for about 2.5 years, but unable to keep up with the mounting pressure of working in such a large team of very interesting individuals at Blizzard. He ultimately left and would work for PopCap and work on one of these games. Well, actually, he worked independently on what we would know as Plants vs. Zombie before bringing the prototype to PopCap, who were interested in actually doing something with it. So now let's get into a little bit of some of the fun unused content and stuff of this game before we even talk about our experiences replaying it.
Hmm.
There is a list of a bunch of unused names. Now, I would like James to read off these names if possible.
Oh boy. All right. So the unused names include Lawn of the Dead,
Yes, that's
Backyard of Darkness, 28 Shrubs Later, Get Off My Lawn, Zombies versus Plants. Oh wow, I can't believe that one didn't go through. Rest in Peas, Field of Screams, Plants with a Z. And this is just a small quantity of the total names that we have, but I'm personally a big fan of Lawn of the Dead and Plants with a Z.
Yeah, Plants with a Z is hilarious. And also on the wiki there is like I think Zombotany. There's like a ton of unused
Zombotany.
names. But Lawn of the Dead was actually like kind of a George favorite and kind of like a favorite of the naming conventions.
Hmm.
And so apparently George actually dressed up as a zombie and went to like ask like Romero, Romero zombie and stuff like that.
George to George communication.
Yeah, so they had a G2G and they were asking like he said, "Can I have permission to use Lawn of the Dead?" Cuz obviously it's a parody of Dawn of the Dead.
Yeah,
Um but
legal
which
troubles
he
potentially.
promptly declined. So
Damn,
they couldn't use that name, which
he
is
didn't.
honestly a great name.
So that's who we have to blame for this game not being called Lawn of the Dead.
Yeah, the person who would probably sue them if they didn't
Wow, I'm
ask.
sending a strongly worded letter.
Yeah, well, regardless, I kind of like the name they settled on, Plants vs Zombies. It's
Yeah,
pretty to the point. I,
I
I don't
mean
know how.
you're
Yeah,
getting what you expect.
I don't know how well. Like the movie parody names were fun and all, but I feel like they don't really describe what you're doing. And like back in the day, it's like you got
Hmm.
Angry Birds, oh, the birds that are angry. It was very straight to the point.
Hmm.
In terms of these names. But anyway, they eventually settled on Plants vs Zombies, as we know. And there's a ton of other stuff that happened in the time frame, but I think we've kind of given a good enough overview of what was going on. And I think this also, after Plants vs Zombies, there was Plants vs Zombies 2. There was some like Garden Warfare 3D third person
Oh
over the
yeah.
shoulder shooters and so much random spin-offs and games that happened. And PopCap would later be bought by EA for
You know,
$350 million.
I actually did play the Garden Warfare demo a while back, and I think first thing that stuck out to me was that the sunflower was committing homicide.
Yeah, that's good.
It's like that meme where it's like I'm a healer, and the guy's just loading a gun.
Oh yeah, that guy would be me playing any game where I play support, and I'm just like, I'm gonna heal
Yeah,
you, but I'm also gonna gun you.
battle mercy.
Yes, that, but unironically. Um, yeah. So that was the. I mean, there's a lot of other stuff. Like, there's a ton of unused content, and there's actually a bunch of there's a bunch of version differences between all the different versions. Now, I played on the PC version for this replay. I assume you did too as well, James.
Yes, I did. I played it on Steam.
Yeah, weirdly enough, when we went to go record this, the game was on sale for $1 too, which was nice if you hadn't picked it
Mm.
up. It might still be on sale, but I'm not sure.
Yeah, we just have great timing.
Oh
Actually,
yeah,
speaking of that, isn't there that Portal remaster coming out soon? That's actually just great. We just know the future.
that's true. And there's
We
gonna be
actually just know the future.
if a Plants vs Zombie remaster is announced like after this podcast airs, then we'll know we're making moves.
You have us to thank. We made them do it.
Yeah, I will
It's
say
all advertisement.
I did look into the Portal RTX stuff a little bit, and people are kind of complaining about certain things where there are some design choices that are questionable with it, but I think that's
Oh,
another
really?
topic. Yeah,
Yeah.
that could be even a side quest.
Yeah, we could talk about remasters on a side quest.
Oh, that would be a good idea. We should write that down.
Yep.
Um, but anyway, I think this was the history lesson brought to you by various fan sites, Wikipedias, and videos. Um,
Yes.
we'll consider, since the podcast is very open to changes. We'll consider how we handle this in the future. But let's, I think, move away from that and kind of get into our own experiences with the game. So James, I've done a lot of talking. How did you find playing this game?
I actually thought it was really cool. It was a lot more interesting than I remember actually. I think something I noticed really quickly is the game only really has two resources. Like if you really like look at it, it's just really time and sun. Time in the sense that there's very much an early game, mid game, and late game, as with most strategy games. And I found it very, very cool in that sense that it's kind of a lot of it is very simplified. I don't want to say like dumbed down necessarily, but it's presented in a way that people who are new to the genre won't really feel alienated. It all feels very natural. Because obviously early on they don't really send very many zombies at you. There's only like one or two at a time, really, and it gives you plenty of time to get all your sunflowers up and things like that. Um, and I actually noticed that it does do a very good job of kind of subtly teaching you the basics of what strategies you should be using between certain zombies being countered by certain plants, or I guess in that sense requiring you to have certain plants in some cases, and also just encouraging you to not really have all high cost or low cost plants, because that would require you to sacrifice either your early game or your late game. And generally, the low cost items were there to really bring a little bit more early stability, while high cost items were kind of they're a bit more late game and occasionally to kind of bail you out, like the cherry bomb, for example. If you feel overwhelmed, you can just drop a cherry bomb, It'll
Mhm.
kill all the zombies in the area. It doesn't really require much preparation. It's very reactionary. Um, and also just being able to see the zombie lineup in advance. It's something that it feels very natural because obviously you're choosing your deck of not cards, your deck of plants. Um, but it's really cool because you're able to see what you have to throw at you. You might end up coming up with a completely new strategy, or you could use a previous strategy and just swap out one or two plants. Um, and yeah, I also found that the basic combos that you could do with plants are really cool too. Like you could have a walnut and a potato mine, and that would essentially allow you to stall for the potato mine to sort of prime itself. And I found myself using that quite a bit in like early game, just so I wasn't spending too much sun on like a pea shooter or something like that, and I
Yeah,
can just save it up to have better defenses later.
yeah, that's actually really interesting how you described that synergy between different plants. And you gave the example of the potato mine walnut, which is something I actually did not do, at least use the potato mine that much. Or the walnut, I went for more like an offensive play style. And I think there is room for these varied play styles in how you can actually play the game, which leads to some replayability. I One of the
Hmm.
things I've noticed in the game was the difficulty and the lack thereof difficulty, really, in a lot
Yes.
of cases, unless you choose to make the game harder for yourself by doing challenges and like restricting yourself, because
Hmm.
the game very early gives you that cherry bomb, and that cherry bomb can just wipe entire like final waves. Like you can just kind of invalidate most of the game with
Yeah.
that item, which I think was intentional to give people who are more casual the out. If they want to use the item, they can use this kind of get out of jail free card. And you also have the mowers that are set up. So
Yeah.
um if you get a zombie that can break through your lines, you have at least one additional chance on that per lane with the lawnmower that'll take out all the other zombies.
Yeah. I personally found that you had to mess up pretty bad to be in a situation where the mowers came. It was usually actually the only times when I actually found that the mowers were used for me was when I literally made like some sort of mistake, like I forgot to have a cactus when there were the balloon zombies or something like that. Um,
Uh, let's take a pause real quick. A have you ever played podcast first, because there is a barking dog that I will situate. This barking dog is leaving very soon, so we'll give it a little bit of a break.
all right.
Okay, we are back. The dog has left, and we are back to continue talking about Plants vs Zombies. I don't exactly remember where we left off, but I think we were talking a little bit about the topic of difficulty in the game in general being
Yes.
not that hard.
Yeah. Yeah. I did find that like the game is very balanced in the player's favor. So normally the lawnmowers only really came in handy when you really messed something up. I think the first time I realized that was when you actually got the puff shroom. And how so for me personally, and some other game designers do this. The way that especially in card games, the way that we evaluate how strong things are is usually like a basic value equation. So it's like you take the cost of something, in this case, like the sun that something costs, and then you take like the output. So like in a card game, it might be like the attack or like how much damage it does, right? Um, and then you would divide the output by the cost, and what you get in the end is the value. Um, and so obviously, when you have something like the puff shroom, which is free, and it effectively when it's within its range does the same amount of damage as a regular pea shooter, uh, you can imagine that kind of breaks it kind of breaks the equation a little bit because you're dividing by zero essentially.
Mhm.
Um,
And you're talking about specifically, so in Plants vs Zombies, the way the game is structured, there are levels where you're in the daytime, and
mhm.
then there's a level where you're in the nighttime. So I think it's each set of like 10 levels. You're playing these like basic Plants vs Zombie levels. There's like a couple mini games which we can talk about later,
Mhm.
and then there's also these like big gameplay changes where you're in a sunny area at first. You can use certain types of plants. Then it becomes nighttime. All your like daytime plants do not work, so you
Hmm.
need to switch over to these new plants, which James is talking about, the mushroom, and how you kind of have these free units
Yeah.
in that time. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I believe I sent you a screenshot. It was me with like 1800 sun, and my entire setup was just puff shrooms, the sun shrooms, and I believe a couple walnuts. It's yeah, it's literally like I was about on the final wave, and it's literally like, well, I can just stack all of these like late game plants, like the I forgot what it's called, the one that like froze everything. It's the freeze shroom or something. I don't remember, but
Yeah.
anyway, yeah, like I can stack essentially whatever I want to just like spam away the late game.
Yeah.
It's kind of like, when you think about it, it's like, well, that really shouldn't. Maybe it shouldn't work like that.
It is weird that the initial area you're in the sun, and then it goes to nighttime, which is supposed to be harder. But I think
Hmm.
because they give you all those freebies and stuff, it honestly feels easier. But maybe it's because we've solved that. We kind of solved the puzzle like really early on. It's like, okay, well, we can't
Yeah,
use plants, so we'll just use the plants they give us. And maybe that's kind of your introduction to weaknesses, because there is the screen door zombie, which you need those like the mushrooms that like spit, like I fit like fume shrooms or something like that. So maybe it's just kind of easing you into, hey, if you spam stuff and you don't consider zombie weaknesses, that's how you would lose in those segments.
yeah. I personally found myself, so overall I did really like the game, but I found myself a little disappointed towards the middle,
Hmm.
just because I felt that lots of the new characters or lots of the new zombies they introduced, with the exception of like the balloon and the digger, which just required specific plants. I felt like lots of them you could just kind of DPS your way through. Like I had all these setups where I would have like, um, in the case of like when it was at night, or in the case of when it was daytime and it was in the backyard with the little like patch of water in the middle, I had like 4 rows of the three peter,
Hmm.
and then I had the oh god, what was it? I don't remember what else I had, but I just had 4 rows of the three peter, and it was just kind of like I just sat there and watched everything just die, because all these rows are just stacking up
Hmm.
their the number of peas going through them.
I think we
And
did a very similar strategy on those levels.
yeah,
And I think there is a satisfaction to solving a level where you put all your units down. Now you have all these like max level unit, basically. Like you're putting the three peters down and you're just
hmm,
like watching the carnage happen, which is satisfying to a point. I think eventually some of the levels, I don't know if you remember, but on the roof levels, we're jumping around by the way, all the way around in Plants vs
hmm,
Zombies, but uh, some of the levels really kind of overstayed their welcome and went on for
yeah,
like far too long. And I think the game is paced actually pretty well, where every time you're about to get bored, there's either a mini game that appears which breaks things up, and I think those are
yeah,
actually a lot of fun.
yeah. The
And
mini games are very fun.
mhm,
They didn't allow you to. So for those of you who haven't maybe played the game before, instead of being able to select your deck of plants, they give you random plants like throughout the level, or not literally random, like they're in a predetermined set, but throughout the level they're basically like coming from right to left. You have these new plants is coming, and you can choose where and when to place them, but you're basically adapting to what the game is giving you.
mhm.
So there's much less planning than normal.
Yeah, and it really is more action. It breaks up the monotony of doing the same old levels, because I would spend a lot of time using the exact same strategy in each level. I would put like 2 rows of sunflowers in the back, then I would put like the same plants, and it worked. And also using like cherry
Hmm.
bombs, like it worked in every level. So like I didn't really adapt, and like the only way I would really use some of the other plants is if I was like, yeah, I'll just use them just to mess around with them. Like it wasn't like I needed to. And
Hmm.
actually, this is a little off topic, but I completely forgot to mention the Plants vs Zombies bangin' soundtrack, which
Oh
is one of
yes.
the defining things of this game. Brought to you by one Lara Shigihara, who
Mm.
streams and is active on Twitch and things under Super Shiggy, and also has a YouTube channel. Check them out.
So
Um,
kind of a crazy coincidence that we have two games with very iconic like ending theme songs in
oh
a row.
yeah, I was thinking that too when I was streaming. Also, my stream
Yeah.
got copyright claimed at the end. So on the YouTube VOD, it's muted, and people in the chat were like, "Is
Oh
this going to be
no.
copyrighted?" And I'm like, "It's probably okay. It's just like muted. That's
Oh
okay.
man.
The music's so good." And I was thinking about the music because we're talking about the bonus levels, which has one of my favorite of the songs. I forget what the song is called, but it's the one where it's like do 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 do. That's a terrible impression for copyright sake
Yeah.
and no other reason.
Imagine we just get copyrighted for that. Like,
But yeah,
man,
no,
your podcast used my song. I don't care if you were just duding it.
I think Plants vs Zombies holds up so well today because of how charming the game is in terms of visually. Everything like the art style holds up. I will say the
Hmm.
PC version of the game graphically is like kind of pixely and weird, and I don't
Yeah.
know what is going on with the
Yeah, I
PC
did
version.
notice that it felt a little odd at times.
Yeah, but overall the art style holds up, and the music is phenomenal in this game.
Hmm.
Like it cannot be understated how good the music is, and that carries the game quite a lot.
Yeah, I think it's I think what another thing that's cool about it is like it very much keeps your at least keeps your hands and your head busy. With first of all the music is very fun, and also like in lots of strategy games when you kind of have your setup ready, it's very easy to just kind of say, oh well, I just don't do anything. But I do like that they had like the zombies dropping the coins and the sun's always falling from the sky and from the plants that you have, and so especially for like younger people that are playing this, it really keeps them occupied, I guess.
Hmm.
So, they don't ever feel like they're just getting bored just watching the game play itself.
Now, this game came out on PC first, but my first experiences with this game, and I think a lot of people have this similar experience, was on the iPod Touch or just on the App Store. And I think this
Hmm.
game is like a perfect mobile game, um, in terms of just how it's designed and like how you can play it. It might even be preferred to play on mobile, and I know graphically as well. It's the most like the iOS version of this game has like a better graphic fidelity than the
Yeah,
PC version.
yeah. When
Um,
I really think about it, I think it would have been even more fun on mobile.
mhm. Yeah, I'm willing to try Plants vs Zombies 2, which I've heard good things about on mobile.
Hmm.
But again, when Plants vs Zombies came out, it was just this really fun mobile game. But with Plants vs Zombies 2 and 3, you have mobile game mechanics, and it's like the mobile landscape is so much different now, and how you monetize a game, and it's
Yeah,
just like you have throwing like thousands of levels with these weird like microtransactions, and it's not going to be the same. But that being said, um Plants vs Zombies has actually a lot of version differences. Like I believe the PS3 version or Xbox version or whatever um has like a full multiplayer mode where you can play the whole game
really.
co-op. Yeah.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, which it's sad. And honestly, we were joking earlier about what if this game gets remastered. I mean, I feel like it could happen like at some point, just a weird like remaster of this game, or maybe they'll bundle all three of them into like one super game or something.
Maybe they just use the Garden Warfare models, but have you looking at them from the side so it looks 2D.
Well, you say that, but there was this weird 3D thing going on with Plant vs Zombie 3, but that game has been like redesigned a few times, and I'm not
Hmm.
entirely following that, but I do know there's some weirdness going on. Um, but anyway, I guess back to how we played through the game. There was a lot of stuff that I did not remember happening in the game, such as
Mm.
the Zen mode and the shop and like all the other side content.
Yeah, that actually did catch me off guard as well.
Yeah, because the game is so linear, but they have all this like replay value in like they have all the shop system where you can buy all these optional plants and upgrades, which cost like a lot of coins in game, which makes me think they would think you're going to be playing this game for quite a while after even
Yeah,
beating it, just to get everything.
yeah. What I find a little, I guess, jarring about it was so they introduced the shop and stuff or the Zen mode and stuff like that, and then just kind of didn't really reference it again. And so I know it's common in like of course like open world games and stuff where it's like, you know, in the main story you get like you're introduced as character and then you can do their side quests or something like that. But I don't think it's quite the same with the game that's a little more linear like this. I never felt like much encouragement to actually use the Zen mode. I just kind of felt like they're saying like it's there, you know?
Yeah, it's strange because it feels like the game was designed to have like infinity levels, like maybe like a weekly
Yeah,
challenge, or like have like thousands of levels where the game is actually pretty short. And I mean, they expect you to replay the same levels and then, you know, just try your new plants in almost like a new game plus
yeah,
style. And I mean, that could probably be somewhat fun, and that's where you would want to get the grinding of all your money and doing all that stuff. But it really, like, I didn't really feel the need to go back and do that. It's interesting and cool that it is there. I just think it was underutilized, and not really that like important. And they introduced those mechanics really late into the game.
yeah. One thing I actually found a little funny about that was the marigold, the little flower that gives you silver and gold coins,
Hmm.
didn't actually get introduced until the fourth last level.
Well, yeah, and I guess that makes sense because they want you to like grind for the other stuff. It
Yeah.
is odd though, right? Because
It
it's
yeah, it feels odd because you would expect like you get that a little earlier, so that, like, you know, as the game goes on, you know, maybe you just have one marigold just chilling there with you while you're going through the story or something like that.
yeah, and I mean, I guess there is weirdness of this game because of just how early, like it's
Yeah,
such an old game at this point.
yeah,
Um, there's some weirdness to it, and yeah, like I think the game on a whole holds up. Although I will say, so the game starts off rather slow, which I think is okay because then it kind of
hmm
it gets pretty ramped up toward the middle of the game. But once you get to those last areas, like the rooftop, I think that rooftop segment was almost like half of the game right there.
yeah. It did feel very drawn out. I think a big part of that was the restrictions on plants. You had like the plants you had were much lower DPS, so it
Hmm.
actually just made the levels take longer. Like I found myself almost exclusively using the kernel pult because it's OP. Let's be honest, the kernel pult was OP. I would have three in one lane, and it would literally just chain stun like everything, and then like when that barely wasn't doing it, I used the melon pult, which just hit everything in an AOE. And it was just, yeah, it
Yeah.
got pretty trivial.
Now I'm wondering, right? I'm wondering if the game intends you to play those roof levels later when you have all your crazy plants, and you can use standard plants on the roof level, because
Hmm
so the way the roof is set up, there's a slant in which regular plants can't fire, so you have to use these new catapult plants they added. There's like, I think like three catapult plants or whatever at the end, and
Yes,
that kind of gets kind of boring.
there's the cabbage pult, the kernel pult, and the melon pult.
Yeah, and I mean they get kind of samey, and you can use other plants technically, if you want to put them higher up. And it's like maybe the point is to like how optimized can you make the ending. But it does almost feel like they intentionally drag it out really long
Yeah,
just to make it feel like there's more gameplay, because those roof levels would take so long. Like it seemed like each level was just doubling in length as you would go on. And then
yeah. I also feel like they introduced probably some overly tanky zombies in that section as well. They had the gargantuar and the catapult zombie, and then they also had the bungee zombie, which was like just stealing your plants. So I feel like it had a lot of things that just made the levels kind of take longer because you were getting a lot of your plants just randomly taken. You know, you were just having to put so much DPS down to actually like to actually kill these zombies.
yeah, and I also think that you mentioned like the gargantuan zombie and stuff like that, and all these like harder enemies, like they have the zomboni, and they have there's a zombie that like shoots balls at you or whatever.
Hmm
All those zombies kind of get countered by the cherry bomb, which is like an item you
Yeah.
just get, and like the squash, just items you get like so early on.
Yeah,
And
the squash was very, very powerful.
yeah, I think one cherry bomb and a squash would like kill the gargantuan zombie, and it was just
Hmm.
like really not that big of a threat. Um, and it's just like I feel like the game would be way harder without the cherry bomb, and I could have not used it intentionally to make myself have a harder time. But I
Hmm.
mean, they gave it to me really early. And I'm like, I'm gonna use it, I guess.
Yeah, I personally didn't use the cherry bomb very much towards the end. That was both I don't want to make it unfair thing, and also I kind of just wanted to mess with all the plants. But I found that some of the later ones were a bit they were a bit too niche, I guess.
Hmm.
Like the coffee bean to wake up sleeping mushrooms, the garlic to move things to other lanes. I did find the umbrella leaf, which would protect like your backline plants from like bungees and things like that, was nice. But I don't know. I just feel like some of them were niche, and they didn't necessarily have a level that encouraged you to use them as much as some other plants did.
Yeah, I would point to the starfruit one being one of
Yeah,
those
yeah.
kind of plants where like you already have the pea shooter that can shoot backwards, which exclusively existed to kill those mining zombies. Um, and it's like, yeah, that star was like it's kind of a weird thing. And actually, you know what kind of sucks? And I guess this is kind of a thing where if we replayed the game over and over again with the plants we had, we would find it more fun. I'm thinking like those tiki torch whatever, like the flaming plants that you get.
Torchwood?
Yeah, the torchwood. Or no, the one that when you shoot a pea through it, it lights it on fire. Is that what
Yeah.
that is?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, Torchwood.
Yeah, so that was a lot of fun, especially with the three-peater. You would have
Yeah,
the
I use that
fire
a
and all
lot.
that, but you could only use that for a short period of time, and then um, you couldn't use it again. But I guess on replay, if you're playing the first level again, you could probably use it.
Yeah.
Um,
What I did find kind of cool is the survival mode. It's essentially you get a set of plants at the start, and you complete like a full, essentially a level of zombies, and then all the plants that you have down stay, and more zombies will come, but you can change your deck.
hmm.
And I actually thought that was pretty cool because I thought that it allowed for some adaptive things, like you could get all your early game plants like the sunflowers and all that stuff just out of the way at the start. Then you could just create like a impenetrable fortress of like three peters and torchwood and gatling peas and stuff like that. Obviously, it wasn't much more difficult than the regular game, but it was at least fun. I got to mess with all my toys.
Yeah, and I do remember this game being harder as a kid, and this game is marketed, I think, toward a more casual audience, and
Hmm.
I do think that there's so much to play nowadays. I was really trying to get through the game, and I didn't explore the side content as much as I would have if it was one of the only games I had to play for a long time.
Yeah.
And I think that mobile element helped it if you were playing on a phone because you could check in, play a level, check your Zen Garden. I think it
Hmm.
really was meant to be mobile in a way, even though it came out on PC
Yeah, I do
first.
feel like the way that we played this game might have been a little, I guess you could say dishonest. Like, because it definitely wasn't how they intended you to play it. So, we could give it a few more points considering the fact that we played it in a very unnatural way.
Yeah, I think it was very rushed. And also it's so funny that like I think the philosophy of these PopCap games is they're very like casual, play on your own pace, and
Hmm.
trying. It's kind of like, why is Bejeweled not fun? I just grind it 40 hours of Bejeweled and play every puzzle back to back. Like, what I'm having like, where's the variety? It's like, well, yeah, you played it, like you played the enjoyment out of it, and I
Hmm.
did have to stream. So I was going to play the game throughout the week, but I had streamed it and I had a time issue where I basically had to play 4 hours of it yesterday just to get ready for
Hmm.
the podcast. And then, I mean, that kind of sours some of my opinion on the
Yeah.
game because if you're play, it's not. It really is not meant to be played for long sittings. I think it is best played one level every so often, and then check in. Play like that.
Yeah. Definitely.
Yeah, I think
Big
that
agree.
is the yeah, that is definitely the move. Did you dive into the zombie avatar at all, by the way?
Zombie avatar. Not sure what that was.
Yeah, so at the beginning of the game, there's an option to create a zombie avatar, and
Ah, I see.
basically you could take a bunch of pre-made dress-up assets and make your own custom zombie, which would then
Hmm.
like save to your desktop like an image, so you could use it on like MySpace or whatever. But
On
yeah,
MySpace.
but it actually changes the leader zombie. So you know how there's a zombie at the beginning of the wave that carries the flag?
Yeah.
That'll be your zombie avatar if you made one. So just little fun
Oh,
things
really?
like
That's
that.
pretty cool.
Yeah, it's just neat little things.
Hmm.
There's a ton of stuff like that in this game. There's like little
Yeah.
like charm. Um, Apparently, I was watching the Iceberg explained video on this game, and apparently there's a chance that a zombie can eat your walnut, and there's a really low chance that they can be allergic to it and like instantly die. Like a really really low chance.
That's pretty
Um,
funny.
I'm gonna look up the Iceberg creator so I can give them credit because yeah, it's
Yeah.
Shy Valley, Shaii Valley. The Plants vs Zombie Iceberg. Would highly recommend watching that video. And there's a bunch of other
Hmm.
Iceberg videos too.
I do think it's yeah. Like now that we're bringing this up, it is cool that they included lots of like little just fun things that you don't see as often anymore. I guess because it's not really like the primary, I guess, objective of the game.
Yeah, there's a
Like
lot of spectacle
yeah.
between levels and stuff like that. There's so much going on. Like it feels so crafted, like this experience, because you'll be playing a couple levels, then there's like a mini game. There's
Hmm.
Crazy Dave, who we haven't even talked about.
Oh yeah.
um, your crazy neighbor, who is quite the character.
Yeah, I really like Crazy Dave. I thought it was, it was a definitely a unique brand of comedy, but I don't think it's the type that's necessarily like it's not the type to become outdated. It's just fun.
I agree, with the exception of one line of, but oh, it's my magic taco. I'll give you
Oh,
money for it, 1,000 gold for my magic taco, and I'm like, all right, I'll
oh
give him a
man,
pass. It was the thing to be random at the time.
yeah,
I think the humor overall holds up pretty well
yeah.
in the game.
You think it was fun that everything he did, the explanation was just because I'm crazy.
Yeah, I honestly, I did think it was pretty good. And actually, I guess we'll go into some spoilers now. What did you think about that final boss?
Um, so it's actually kind of funny. The first time I did the final boss, I didn't know that the chili peppers and the freezing thing actually affected it. So I was
Hmm.
like, wow, it's just taking ages to kill this thing. And then I'm like, okay, there has to be something I'm missing. So I just restarted. And I'm like, wait a minute, he's firing like fire and ice balls. I mean, I can just use the opposite thing. And then I was like, oh, this is really really trivial. Like I used the ice shroom to like chain stun him, and he just kind of died.
Hmm. I actually really like, so the way the Zom boss, by the way,
Hmm.
the way the boss is set up, it's actually a mini game format where
Yeah,
you don't pick your own plants; they just keep coming. And I thought that was actually a lot of fun, and I kind of wish they did that more in the game and they had more
yeah.
bosses. But I mean, to be fair with the game, they didn't know this was going to be as big as it is. So I have to try to play one of the sequels to see
Yeah, I
what they
do.
do.
I do think cheese aside, it was a pretty good boss.
Hmm.
The fact that it could like obviously remove rows of your plants completely, crush your plants, things like that. Like it was really nice. It was the stuff that required you to like actually react to what he's doing, and it's not always stuff that you've seen before. Obviously, because it's a boss fight, it has a few different moves. I think it was nice.
Yeah, I thought it was pretty exciting. I mean, the music slaps as usual in the game.
Hmm.
I thought it was challenging enough, but not like crazy, and it was really like a good ending to the game. And of course, for some reason, we picked a game that also ends in a song, which
Yep.
was so good. Um, the little dance party ending,
Yeah, it
and
was a really good song.
bring back dance party endings for games.
Yeah,
I
honestly,
I would
like,
love it.
especially ones that like have characters that are like sworn enemies just grooving together.
Oh yeah. Like I want to be playing Far Cry 72 where they get insert Hollywood actor villain. They get Mads Mikkelsen in there, and he's like, I'm the villain." And then at the end, Jason Gunsteel, the main character, looks at him, and they just have a dance party. I would love that. I would play
Yeah,
that
that
game.
sounds great.
Yeah.
Honestly, that should have been the ending to like Metal Gear Rising or something.
Metal Gear
That would have
Rising has
been
a
great.
perfect ending, which we don't need to spoil, but that game has one of the best endings of all time and ending fights of any video game. Oh man, that could be a topic in itself. Just like best video game endings and
Oh
worst video
man.
game endings. But yeah, no, I loved the song and dance. It's just a feel good ending, and then it's
Hmm.
like any complaints and nitpicks I had about the game washed away in the ending, where I'm like,
Yep.
that was a nice ending,
Yep.
and left
I'm
me
sitting there
wanting
like,
more.
man, I'm gonna remember this ending forever.
Until I forgot that it was like that.
Yeah.
Well, I guess we could maybe talk a little bit more about Plants vs Zombies. I think we hit a lot of things.
Hmm.
Do you have anything that you specifically want to bring up?
Let me just look at my notes really quick.
Mm-hmm. Let me take a look at my
Uh,
notes as well, so we're both looking at notes and not talking to the audience.
yeah, that sounds like a great idea. Yeah, I don't think there's anything that I didn't cover yet.
Yeah. I think that Plants vs Zombies deserves like of all things, and I have to do more research on this because I think there's probably some way of remastering or whatever. I think that this game deserves a like nice, super good remaster to
Hmm.
give it HD, whatever, do all this nice stuff,
Yeah.
combine all the features from all the different games because there's a bunch of different version differences, and then do like one nice thing, you know?
Anything that doesn't require me to count the pixels.
Yeah, and actually, just talking about the game from streaming perspective, because I streamed the whole game at Matt Fondude at Twitch TV. Um,
Shameless plug.
yeah, there was actually a lot of people coming through and watching Plants vs Zombies who were very knowledgeable about the game, and
Hmm.
more than I thought. There's a really active community of people who really enjoy this series, and yeah, I think it just shows you that a game that seems very simple like this can hold up and still attract new fans and, still
Yep.
maintain fans.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's really cool. It's truly a universal game. That's one thing that's nice about casual games. It's just about anybody can enjoy it.
Hmm.
It's like we were talking about earlier. It could be a grandmother and a grandkid both playing it together, and they both have about similar fun.
Yeah. And I think with that, we will go into the viewer mail. If you want to send us a message on anything, questions perhaps to be read out on this ending segment, or corrections for all the things we got wrong during this podcast, send us messages at hyeppodcast@gmail.com. That is the hyeppodcast@gmail.com. And I think let's get right into the questions. This was a question we didn't answer last week because we ran out of time.
Yep.
But are there any games you remember playing from like your childhood that you can't remember the name of or you had trouble finding?
Um. Yeah, there was this one game on the Xbox Arcade. It was kind of like Terraria, like it was 2D, but like there were guns and there was like katanas and stuff like that. And
Hmm.
it's like I guess it was kind of an arena shooter because you like picked up the guns and stuff. I still don't even know what it's called, but like it was just cool. I remember like it was had some gore. It was just it was like mainly pixel art. I don't know, it was just crazy. It was fast paced, fun. Played it with my friends a few times when I was bored of all my other games.
All right, I'm going to have to let you in on a little secret. This whole podcast was designed in a way to get us enough clout that we could list games that we vaguely know so people who listen to the podcast can let us know what they are.
Oh
Because
my
I would
god,
love to know certain games like that I just
that would
like
be awesome.
have a vague memory of. And I've tried. Have you seen the subreddit, Tip of My Joystick, where you can type in a description of something like this, and then people will tell you what the game is.
Oh, that just unlocked a memory. Actually, I forgot that subreddit existed.
Yeah, that I've tried to look for certain games through that and had no success.
Hmm.
I don't know. I mean, I was never an Xbox kid, so I don't even know where to begin with the game that you described. It doesn't sound like anything I know, unless it
Yeah,
was like Starbound or something, which is kind of Terraria like, which would be insane if I just got that right. But I don't. I don't think it
yeah.
is
No,
that.
let me look it up really
Yeah, it's
quick.
on Steam. Starbound. I don't know if that was that. That sounds too. That's like post Terraria, and I don't even think Terraria was out
Yeah,
when you're talking, like the era of when you were talking.
yeah. I don't think this. Yeah, this wasn't it.
Um, yeah,
Unfortunate.
my I have a couple of games because when I was a kid, I would go to Blockbuster when that was a thing still, and I
Oh,
would
that's a
rent
throwback.
games. Yeah, but did you ever go to Blockbuster?
Yeah, I went there a couple times. I actually had one that was really close to my grandma's house. So whenever I would visit her, I would go there and just. I wouldn't always rent stuff. I would just kind of look, but I did rent stuff occasionally.
Mm-hmm.
Remember, I rented oh god, I think it was Marvel Ultimate Nemesis for the PS2, and that is an old game.
Yeah, I loved Blockbuster. I would rent the Super Mario Brothers Super Show. They had one VHS of like one episode.
Oh my,
I would just
I
rent
think
that
I
all the
think I
time.
had the whole series on VHS actually.
Oh
I don't
wow,
know
you
if I
were
still have it.
bougie.
Yeah, I remember I'd always watch it in like I'd always watch it in the car because my parents had like one of those cars with the little TV thing.
You were very bougie.
Yeah.
Um, I I only had uh there at Blockbuster, my Blockbuster location. They had the Super Mario Brothers Super Show one episode. They had Sonic's like the Sonic cartoon or whatever as an episode, and the Legend of Zelda one
Hmm.
cartoon. And it blew my mind that video games could have cartoons and media outside of video games, because I think when
Yeah.
I was growing up, a lot of game like nowadays you can be like, oh, I like Minecraft, let me buy a Minecraft backpack and buy Minecraft Legos and buy all this stuff. It's like, yeah, when I was growing up, like seeing Mario on something not a video game was like, oh my god, this is crazy.
Yeah, being a gamer was taboo, and now
Yeah,
now every game's getting an anime. Like
that's true.
that Cyberpunk anime actually came out recently. I watched it. It was very good.
I gotta watch. Everyone's
It
saying
actually
that's really good.
it actually made me play Cyberpunk. It was
Oh
very
wow.
good advertisement.
I like Cyberpunk in general. Like I thought it was
Yeah.
like, even though it had issues, it was still fun.
Yeah, I'm not I guess you could technically say I'm done. I'm like nearly done with the game because I'm at the point where it says like, yeah, if you continue in this mission, you can't like do side quests or whatever.
Hmm.
And, like my character's like level 30. I've essentially got my build together, so it's like I can safely say like I have played enough of the game that I can give like a mostly encompassing view of it. But yeah, I think it's a pretty cool game.
Yeah, and I mean, we kind of got a little sidetracked there, but I guess my to answer the question of the games that I couldn't really remember, there was this one game I got at Blockbuster on the GBA, which I actually have found since this, but
Sick.
there was a ton of games for some reason that I would rent on GBA, and they were like really like popular games such as like Wario Land 4 or Yoshi's Island, and I couldn't find those later because I was very young renting these games. And
Hmm.
I was going through like a checklist of like, okay, that was that game, that was this game. Boktai was one of those, a game I will force you to play at one point, which is that solar panel game. Um,
That one.
yeah, and this one game eluded me in which it was Tetris, but this weird like fortress building game
Hmm.
where it I just could never find it. And I rented it like one time and didn't get it as a kid. Like I didn't understand it, so I like never saw it again. But I kept thinking about it. I'm like, maybe I would have liked that game. And it turns out it's a game literally called Fortress on the GBA, and I found it in a bargain bin recently for like $1. And
Fortress. I bet that's very search friendly.
I know that's the thing too. Like the name is like so hard to find. But yeah, it's Tetris, but you put the Tetris blocks down and it builds a castle, and it's really weird. It's like you fight each other's castles. It's this really weird game.
Man, it's Tetris, but instead of tet, it's four.
Yeah, it's oh wow, you've cracked the code. Um, but one game that I still have no idea is like this Fever Dream game where it was on a website, and I don't know if it was, I think it was like a Shockwave game or it was some
Hmm.
sort of like Flash kind of shock. I think it was Shockwave specifically. And it was this game where it was 3D. I think it was 3D, and it was a maze game where you could make your own maze levels, or you could make your own levels in this game. And I think it was first person, and there was a ghosts in it that could
First
attack
person,
you.
and there was a ghost.
Yeah, there was a ghost. I think you could user create levels, and I think you
Hmm.
could make your own levels and play other people's levels. And it was this dark kind of game, and I think there was ghosts that would fly around, and that scared me, and that's why I didn't play it.
Damn,
Um,
maybe you played PT.
yeah, I guess I played PT early. Very very early PT.
Damn, leaked build of PT. You heard it
It
here first. Matt has it.
I would love to find this game. It's driving me crazy, and I posted about it on that subreddit at one point, and no one cared or could
Man,
find out. And I'm like, I want to know what this game is. If it has to be some sort of internet thing, and I'll have to look it up. I don't know what it was, but I think it was in browser. So if that helps
hmm,
anyone, but yeah, that's my game. I guess let's go into the next question of, do you like battle royale style games in general?
oh boy. Um, considering what I'm gonna follow this up with, it might actually be a little weird, but in general, no. Actually,
Hmm.
I think it's a very so it's actually a surprisingly difficult genre to work with.
Mm-hmm.
You have to consider a lot of things. The only BR that I like, and this is actually like now it's kind of funny. Is I didn't like BRs at all before I played it, but now it's one of my favorite games of all time. It's Apex Legends. And I think among like many things, I think what makes the game very very good for a BR is that like um, while I do think people slightly overstate the randomness in BRs because you can average things out. You can if you get good at the games, you can generally tell where people are going to be depending on where you've like noticed they've landed and stuff like that. I think that the abilities in the game do wonders for it. I think that it's like having that one like constant, like I will pick this character and I can always do this no matter like what I have. I think it's fantastic, and I think it makes it completely changes how you approach the game. Or suddenly, like people are making like team comps and stuff in a BR, which is like otherwise it's otherwise unheard of, to be honest, especially like
Mm-hmm.
before the game came out.
Yeah, and I've played a little bit of Apex. I played it on console at first before it came to like
Hmm.
PC or whatever. Um, and it's like I want to play that game, but I don't like I just don't like battle royale the format. I
Yeah.
would like I mean, Apex is like like almost a Titanfall esque game based on the the
Hmm.
developers of
Yeah.
the game. And the gameplay seems really fun and cool. I just don't like. I don't like just like I don't know, trying to do this whole thing. Like, there is an element to battle royale games. I think Fortnite being a big example of a battle royale game. That it's just like, okay, if you get down to it, you're the last person. Like, you're kind of either hiding the whole game and wasting time, or you die really early, or just like weird stuff happens like that. It's just not. I just don't gel with that style of game. And I
Hmm.
think I'm not. I think the older I get, the less I like competitive games in general. Um,
Yeah, I can see that.
I think a lot of competitive games have these like built-in like rage mechanics almost like they intend you to. I think a lot of competitive stuff intends you to become addicted to it in a way, and
Yeah.
keep fueling you to keep playing. And I don't know. I can't deal.
Yeah, I definitely think we could have an interesting episode someday about competitive games. But I do have some actually quite good news for you.
Hmm.
For somebody who likes the Apex mechanics and like doesn't like BR, it's actually the perfect time to play because right now they have a limited time mode called Gun Run. It's like gun game like in Call of
Hmm.
Duty, but it's in teams of 3 and it's like 4 different squads. So it's actually like it's really nice. It's fast paced. Games don't last very long, and obviously it's just shoot gun, get next gun, stuff like that. It's pretty fun. Then they also have their arenas mode, which it's kind of like Counter-Strike where you buy your guns and stuff like that, but there's no like bomb or anything. It's just kind of team deathmatch with like one life per round.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I think it would be definitely be interesting if you got back into the game at all. Because you have options now.
Yeah, and I played on launch and on console, so I was not
Hmm.
really like I didn't really play it in a way where I could really fully experience it. And maybe if I did give it
Yeah,
another shot, it's just I'm thinking about going back into it and then doing at least the traditional battle royale style mode. And those kind of games, uh, I think would benefit from playing with friends,
yeah,
as
definitely.
opposed to solo queuing.
Yeah, Apex is. I like to say these multiplayer games, like people get so caught up in the competitiveness, but it's really about interacting with other people, and I think that's something that's often lost in the way that some people approach solo queue and stuff like that. And I think it's why people get very very tilted at these kinds of games.
Hmm.
Yeah, I think if you're willing to try it again, I would play it with you, obviously. But
Hmm.
yeah, it's
Yeah,
fun.
I think it could be fun. I actually kind of during the process of this question remembered that wait, I kind of do like battle royale, but not like Fortnite, like shooting each other, getting gun
Hmm.
style. But like when you apply that, be the last one to survive to other game formats, like a Fall Guys. I enjoyed
Hmm.
Fall Guys for a while, and I enjoyed this. There's like this Bomberman style game and like the Tetris 99. Like I like battle royale when it's applied to something really weird like that.
Hmm.
I think that's actually a lot of fun. Where it's like, what if we did a fishing game, but it's a battle royale, like catch the biggest bass? Like I like that
Yeah,
stuff. I don't know why.
yeah. I think it's a really fun concept, especially like of the fantasy of it's the fantasy of being the last one standing is always going to be something that'll attract players. It's just a question of as far as like as far as the people playing it, how much time are you willing to spend not being the last one standing?
Hmm.
You can always say like, oh, that one game I won was great, but how many games are in between that?
Yeah, and I think I have this mentality playing those kind of games. I usually play support or tank in those kind of a game, in like any kind of game.
Hmm.
And I think battle royale appeals to the people who want to be that DPS kind of like they want to be like the last guy, they want to be the last person. And
Yeah,
I'm like I don't want to be in the spotlight. I want to be the person supporting. And I know Apex does give you that option to
yeah,
play those supportive roles. I think Apex would appeals most if I'm playing a game between like a PUBG, a Fortnite, an Apex, or I don't know some other shooter one, but like the Call of Duty game. I think Apex appeals to
hmm
me the most out of all of those games because it is that class based thing, almost Overwatch esque. Which I mean,
yeah.
Overwatch appeals to me, even though that game fuels my rage if I ever play it. That game intentionally makes you just so angry in everything it
Yeah,
does.
man, Overwatch is something else.
Oh yeah, let's take a game where it requires extreme team coordination and then just give you solo queue. God. Well, I think that's a podcast for today.
Yep,
I think
it
we
would
hit
seem
that
so.
time. Well, I hope you enjoyed the Have You Ever Played podcast. I've been, as usual, Matt Fondude, aka Matt. Wait, that's the other way around, but whatever. I'm on Twitch, Twitter, and I'm on TikTok now too. So all you TikTokers
Sick.
rejoice. And I'm on YouTube. I'm on everything. Look, watch my streams. Come chat with me. Yell at me for being bad at video games at Twitch TV.
Awesome. And I've been James, James04E on actually most social media. As I recently found out, my Instagram is James04E
Ooh, mixing it up a little
because,
bit.
yeah, for some reason, James04E was taken. I even tried changing it to that and it said still taken.
All
So,
right. Well,
yeah,
there's an imposter running around. Sus among us. Goodbye,
sus
everybody.
among us. Goodbye.